Welcome to Love and Noir, a book review podcast that dives into the steamy but smart world of romantic suspense. Buckle up for today's episode.
What happens when you throw two really independent people, completely different lives, into this kind of isolated pressure cooker situation?
Right.
Today, we're diving into a novel where that exact scenario sparks this, well, surprisingly compelling romance. It's between a brilliant scientist and a, let's say, no-nonsense Interpol detective.
Yeah, and the core of what we're looking at is the story of Meryl. She's a scientist, recently sidelined from her company, Vivid Technology, or Cavendish Analytics, I think it's called, because of a security threat.
Okay.
And then there's Luca. He's the Interpol agent assigned to protect her.
So right away, you've got this clash, haven't you? Worlds colliding.
Definitely. And the threat involves intellectual property theft, some corporate espionage stuff.
Yeah.
There's a character named Soda Mikado mixed up.
Okay, so Meryl, she's all logic, science-driven, right? And suddenly she's under the watch of Luca, whose whole world is observation professional distance. It feels almost like a movie setup. The independent brain versus the disciplined operative.
Yeah.
You can kind of sense the friction immediately, but maybe something else too.
Absolutely. And the thing that really forces them together, the mechanism, is that classic trope. Forced proximity.
Ah, okay.
For her safety, Meryl gets moved, relocated to Luca's family's cabin. It's remote, way out in Lancaster, Minnesota.
And this isn't some fancy safe house, is it? I remember reading, it's described as pretty rustic, solar-powered even.
That's the one, rustic.
So imagine this cutting-edge scientist trying to do her vital work in a place probably more suited to, I don't know, canoes than computers.
Right. That tension is immediate. Her needs versus the environment. It sets up this dynamic where she might actually have to lean on Luca for things she wouldn't expect.
Creates a dependency almost.
In a way, yeah. And from Luca's side, the story makes it clear. He's very aware of his professional boundaries. He's cautious about getting emotionally tangled with someone he's protecting.
So resistance on both sides to being stuck together.
Right. Initially, yes. But interestingly, we get a little peek inside Meryl's head on the flight over. She's actually thinking about how to sort of win him over.
Oh, okay. So she's not just passively accepting the situation. She's strategizing a bit.
Seems like it. Shows she's aware of the interpersonal dynamics right from the start.
So they're stuck together
Mm.
in this isolated place. Beyond just, him keeping her safe, what does that actually look like day to day at the start? It can't just be tense silence, surely.
No, not at all. The book does a good job of showing these small, gradual, shared moments building up.
Like what?
Well, Meryl's setting up her lab space in Luca's workshop. That image itself, her high-tech gear amongst his, more traditional tools, it really says something about the different worlds colliding right there.
Yeah, I can picture that.
They share simple meals. Soup, I think. And frozen fish sticks even get a mention.
Frozen fish sticks. Okay, that feels surprisingly normal, almost mundane.
Right. It grounds it. Makes them feel like real people in a weird situation, not just romance characters. And through these little everyday things, some banter starts up. Bit of back and forth.
So those small moments, the fish sticks included, how do they actually start to, bridge that gap between them, between the scientist and the agent?
Well, bit by bit, these shared experiences chip away at those initial walls. Luca, for instance, he starts noticing her work ethic, how dedicated she is.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to resonate with him, He's disciplined too.
Find some common ground there.
Exactly. And they discover this shared dry sense of humor. It becomes a subtle way they connect, navigate the awkwardness.
A little bit of shared language.
Yeah. And Meryl, she turns out to be surprisingly okay with the whole rustic cabin thing. She adapts. And that kind of challenges Luca's initial ideas about her. He starts to see beyond the client under protection label.
Okay, so he's seeing more of the person. And wasn't there something about old photos, glimpses into his past?
Ah, yes. The prom photos. He's got these old pictures, and Meryl sees them. Luca with someone named Shannon.
Shannon. Okay. So an old flame. How does Meryl react? Does that create any, jealousy or awkwardness?
It's subtle. Not overt jealousy, but it definitely adds a layer. It acknowledges Luca has a history, a life. Before this assignment, it introduces that hint of vulnerability, maybe.
Mm-hmm. A reminder they both have pasts.
Exactly. It's this unspoken thing between them, recognizing they've both got baggage experiences that shape them.
So as they spend more time cooped up together, does that initial, maybe slightly forced interaction start to feel more comfortable?
Yes, definitely. There's a clear shift. They start sharing coffee in the mornings, working on their laptops, maybe not even talking, but just being in the same room comfortably.
The silences become okay.
Right. Those silences become less strained, more companionable. It's these routine things done together in that close space that really build a foundation for something deeper, something beyond just the job or the initial differences.
Okay, so we've got this gradual buildup from being forced together, the initial awkwardness, then these small shared moments, creating a sort of comfort level. What's the thing that really pushes it into actual romance territory? Is there a specific turning point?
The story really points to this shared experience they have. They go to this secluded riverbank, white sand, apparently. It's a key moment.
Away from the cabin?
Yeah, a change of scenery. And that seems to allow for a different kind of interaction, deeper, more personal sharing.
What makes that specific moment so important? It's got to be more than just a pretty spot for a scene, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's there, in that more open, natural setting, that they really start opening up, properly opening up.
No, so.
Meryl shares stuff about her childhood, her passions beyond just science, gives him a window into her family, what
Yeah.
made her who she is.
Okay, letting him see behind the scientist facade.
Exactly. And crucially, Luca reciprocates. He shares something really personal and traumatic about his mother's death and having an abusive father.
Wow. Okay, that's deep, sharing that kind of pain.
It's huge. That mutual vulnerability is the real turning point. It shows this incredible level of trust has been built. It's a massive leap towards emotional intimacy.
So the forced proximity basically created this bubble where they felt safe enough to share those really guarded parts of themselves that broke down the professional wall for good.
I think that's exactly it. Moving from that professional detachment Luca was so careful about to real emotional closeness. And after that, the physical intimacy, the first kiss back at the cabin, making love by the river. It feels like a natural follow-on from that deep emotional connection they've just forged.
Right, it feels earned because of that vulnerability.
Precisely.
Okay, let's really dig into this forced proximity trope itself then. How well does that isolated cabin setting really work as the engine for this romance? Is it just convenient, or is it used in a maybe more clever way?
I think it's used very effectively. The isolation is deliberately leveraged to speed everything up. The lack of outside distractions is absolutely key.
No friends dropping by, no work calls.
Exactly. None of their usual support networks, no everyday life diversions. Their main focus, pretty much by default, becomes each other. All that external noise is gone, letting them really see each other without the usual filters.
So it's like stripping away all the normal buffers we have in life, forcing them to deal with each other and maybe their own feelings much more directly than they usually would.
That's a great way to put it. And they rely on each other, don't they? For basic things. Security, obviously, but also just companionship in that lonely place. That reliance deepens the bond.
Right.
Even mundane things like her setting up the lab or going grocery shopping together, they become opportunities for real interaction, for connection.
Because there's nothing else happening.
Pretty much. Being stuck in that small space makes them navigate shared routines, personal habits. It just naturally fosters intimacy. The isolation works like an amplifier for everything between them.
It's like the cabin is this unique little crucible, forging their relationship much faster because there are no outside pressures or escapes. But the outside world can't stay away forever, can it? Don't things start to creep back in?
They do. Luca's past pops up again briefly with Shannon making an appearance.
Ah, the X from the photos.
Yeah, and Meryl observes them. It's written subtly, but it highlights her own changing feelings for Luca, how much he started to mean to her.
And there's also the fact that the setup isn't permanent, right?
Exactly. Luca's assignment has an end date, and Meryl has plans to go to Calgary. Her father is ill. So this element of limited time comes in.
Adding urgency.
Yeah, sense of urgency. It perhaps makes the time they do have feel even more precious, more intense.
So they know this bubble they're in, this connection formed under these weird temporary circumstances, might not have an easy future.
They're definitely aware of it. The book mentions they make a conscious choice to just enjoy the time they have left together, which shows how strong that connection has become, even knowing it might be fleeting. They're choosing the present moment.
But the story doesn't just leave it there, hanging with potential heartbreak, does it? It seems like what they built does last.
That's right. Luca makes this pretty impulsive decision, actually. He follows Meryl to Calgary.
Ah,
Yeah.
which is a huge statement, right? It shows his feelings run deep, way beyond just doing his job. It's a real commitment.
and how does that go down in Calgary? With her family?
Well, her stepmother, Shayna, is surprisingly welcoming. She actually seems to subtly encourage them, which suggests that this bond they formed back in the cabin might actually have legs in the real world.
So the intense, maybe slightly artificial closeness from the forced proximity, it actually resulted in something real and promising that survived leaving the cabin.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that pressure cooker environment genuinely forged a strong, lasting bond between them, despite how it all started.
It really shows how the novel uses that trope so well. The isolation wasn't just a plot device, it was the catalyst. It stripped away the noise, forced the vulnerability, and let something real grow.
Precisely. The novel really nails how forced proximity, done right, can create this believable, compelling romance by removing distractions and making the characters truly face each other.
This deep dive really makes you appreciate how that setup worked here. The isolation, the shared vulnerability, the lack of external buffers, it all came together.
And what's really effective is how it shows that initial reluctance, the professional lines, making the eventual intimacy feel, earned. Which makes me wonder, thinking about our listeners, have you ever been in a situation, maybe not quite that extreme, but where being close to someone constantly led to an unexpected connection? Or maybe deepened feelings you already had?
That's a great question. And what do people think are the key ingredients for this forced proximity thing to work well? Not just in stories, but maybe, just maybe, in real life too. It definitely leaves you thinking about the power of just sharing experiences, being vulnerable, and how that can build relationships, sometimes when you least expect it.